guys, how are we all doing? We're on the back of a win. We're about to discuss our next scalp, and that is Port Adelaide. I'm Dan the Pom, you're on Pommyinoz. If you are new around here, please flick us a like and a subscribe. It means the world to me. And what we're doing today is we're going to review? Can you review before? No, you can't. Preview the game we've got this Sunday against Port Adelaide. Now, this should be a really tough game. The wonderful thing about Port, and they have been flying at the minute, is when you watch how they play, they really do set up to play a very direct style, which is kind of helping Carlton because on a micro scale, the Doggies play a very similar way. Very kick heavy, very direct, and a very high defensive press. This is kind of like game 2 of a 3-game series for Carlton in the AFL. Western Bulldogs are a very similar side. Now, when we look at Port Adelaide as a team, they are top 3 for pretty much every stat in the AFL. Pressure acts, tackles per minute, forced turnovers. They're the 4th largest efficiency in possession, best scores per minute, and the 2nd least in scores against. These guys are real pressure beasts. And let's start with the forward line when you look at Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide's ability to lock it in the forward line. They're very efficient kicking inside 50, and they're very efficient when they get the set shots at goal. These guys are really set up well. When you look at their forward line, when you've got players like Ebert, Dixon, we know he's flying. They've got some players there that really do have a hunger and a desire to lock it in. Puts the defence under a lot of pressure, and they look to force the turnover off that escape kick out of half back. And then when you look at their midfield, they've got a lot of talented players. A lot of people talk about Robbie Gray when he slots in the midfield of the half-forward line, and there's Travis Boak. But one player that I don't think gets enough kudos is Kane Farrell. Kane Farrell has been really good for Port this year. And what he does is he combines his ability to be explosive from stoppages, but also kick goals on the run, which was showcased last week with that goal kick long on the run from about 55 out. They have threats all around the ground. And for me, when you look at that, and if we break it down, it's going to be a real battle for the efficiency down back. We're going to be looking really at SPS and Doc. These two have really got a chance to really hit them hard on the counter. And that's how teams have been successful against Port. Kind of similar to how we did against the Western Bulldogs, where we get the ball and we look for an escape kick in the corridor. We take high risk, high reward. And that is how you beat Port. Their forward line is exceptionally good at locking it in. However, with that high press that they play, they like to push their defenders up to really create a wall and a kind of a corridor of uncertainty. You've got to look for the smart kick. They do have players that they slot there. They like to put Scott Lysett down the wing. They like to play players like that to stop that escape kick. Very common in the AFL that you kick to the wings when you're under pressure. It's a recipe for disaster with Port, and that is where it's going to play into our strengths. We are looking now to escape with, if you watch Carlton's methodical backline movement, it's genuinely a kick to half back flank, and then we look for that exit kick through the corridor. We look for a runner. We've got McGovern usually in the centre circle. Look for him. He looks to either turn and go or look to handball to a passerby and a runner through. Now their backline, although it's going well, there is some chinks in the armour. There is some key matchups that we can look at. If you look at Harry McKay, McGovern and Casbolt, that worked really supremely well last week and kind of answered a few questions of, can you play 3 talls in today's game? And the reason it works is if you looked last week, they kind of played in a zone. There was kind of situations where they didn't get in each other's way. Traditionally, when we've played 3 talls, we have got in each other's way and spoiled our own marks. Now, I don't think their backline kind of matches up with Carlton's as well, as the Doggies did. Their talls aren't traditionally, I don't think, in my opinion, as supreme as the Doggies. Alex Keefe, for me, is one of the best intercept markers. They don't genuinely have that high-class talent down the back as the Doggies do. But what they do well is they're very efficient, they're very prudent. They do stick to their man very well. It's a very man-on-man type system. So space is paramount. And that plays into Harry McKay and McGovern's ability at leading. They do lead really well. The issue is we generally don't pick them out. However, that has started to die in the last 2 games where the efficiency at hitting targets and marks on the lead has improved exponentially. I do think Darcy Byrne-Jones is going to be an intriguing prospect though. Again, another player at Port that I think is genuinely underrated from most AFL outlets. He's very efficient at what he does. He's a very good ball user. He looks to take the game on and he really does set up their score launches. This is going to be another chance for Eddie Betts. We saw Eddie Betts do a wonderful job on Caleb Daniel last week. It's another matchup for him where you would say this is playing into Eddie Betts' hands. He's got a real good chance here and a real good chance to focus on, stopping him coming out of half-back flank, but also putting enough pressure on him that you saw it with Caleb Daniel. His mindset turned more to defence than to launching attacks. Now, when you look at their midfield, we know they lead clearance. They've got the most disposals in the comp. These guys are a centre clearance machine. And it all starts with Lysett. Now, Lysett is one of these mercurial players that, when you look at his numbers numerically, they don't stand out. However, when you watch him play, there's some things that maths doesn't tell us. And he's very key to how they play. He doesn't win an awful lot of hit-outs, it's at 40%. However, when you watch him play, the hit-outs he doesn't win, he makes it very hard to create a clean contest. Now, for me, this is where we're going to be looking at old new faithful, old Bam Bam, Matt Kennedy. Now with Matt Kennedy, what he did really well against the Doggies was he kind of acted like a stopper. He came off his man and he would look very, very firmly to shepherd for Ed Kerner or Cripper. And these two got 7 clearances each and Kennedy got a few himself. And this is kind of a modern day tactic. You see Richmond exploit this. You see Collingwood exploit this. Taylor Adams quite often does this role for Collingwood, and it's kind of the modern day football, and it's kind of an understated role, someone who sacrifices their game for the betterment of the midfield around him. And if he can do that for Port, there is a lot of players that Port utilise in that position. Dersma does it, Kane Farrell does it, Travis Boak does it. They kind of shepherd for each other. Now if Kennedy can do this and stop Boak getting to the ball, getting his hands on the pill, this will really help Cripps and will really help Kerner out and become a kind of a domination type thing. If we can get on top in the midfield, and the games that Port have lost in the last 2 years, it's genuinely been in the centre clearances is where they've got dominated. All in all, it's going to be a really tough game. Carlton do match up really well with Port. And one player we haven't talked about is Robbie Gray. This is someone that statistically does have a good time against Carlton. And he's kind of this figure that hasn't set the world alight this year, but Port have been going well. So you could say in that argument he is due one. Now for me, what Robbie Gray does is he kind of drifts in and out of games. He's like a Jake Stringer, he's like a Dustin Martin. He's their mercurial talent. He's the guy that can break the game open. And for me here, this is where I think Lockie Plowman comes into effect. He's had history with Walters, he's had history with Cameron. This is where, for me, Lockie Plowman comes into his own. He's very good at doing that one-on-one role and that lockdown role. And this is something that when they slot him in the half-forward line, he's going to have to do. He's going to have to look for him, have to look to bring the ball down, and that is where Robbie Gray does his best work. But incidentally, it's where I think Lockie Plowman is strong. When the ball hits the deck, he's very accomplished and very strong. He uses his centre of gravity well, and he stifles, he gets his hands, he doesn't allow you clean possession. And for me, I think Plowman's got that. The last one we're going to talk about is Kane Cornes, and we know Kane Cornes loves the argument, who's better, Rosie or Walsh? And what is great about this fixture is Rosie has been playing a very similar role for Port Adelaide this year in the midfield, as our Sam Walsh does. And this is where again Kennedy comes in. Shepherd quite a lot for Walsh as well. Give Walsh the time. Now to see these two go head to head for me is an absolute dream. In my opinion, I know I've seen a lot of people redo that top 10 draft. For me, these are the two standouts in that competition for consistency and longevity. I've always liked Rosie and I've always liked Smith, but I think that these two here are that kind of talent that will get the votes. These are Brownlow vote getters as opposed to the other two who are going to be kind of a mercurial type talent. And it's going to be really interesting, this one. I want to see these two go head to head. If I was Teague, I would be putting him on Rosie and saying, go head to head. Show who's better. There's been a lot of talk about you. A lot of talk about who's better. This is your chance. And for me, what is important is they're kind of at a crossroads. Rosie had a good start to the year and he's kind of stagnated. Walsh had a dip at the start of the year and he's starting to come back in the last 2 games. Should be a really intriguing matchup and I'm super excited about looking at this one. That's my little preview of the game. I personally think Carlton are going to get the job done by 6. Please let me know in the comments what you're looking forward to, matchups, What are you thinking about team selection? I personally think they'll go in unchanged, and I'm looking forward to it. I think this should be a ripping game. Two teams playing good football at the height of their powers at the moment. Feelings are high, and you know, this could be it for Carlton. If we win this, it really underlines we've changed. Let me know in the comments, guys. If I don't see you through the week, see you through the window. Pom out.